All right, so Megyn Kelly was able to get an interview with Donald Trump. Now, the backstory to this is kind of interesting because obviously for the longest time they hated each other. Trump despised Megyn Kelly because back during 2015 and 2016 for the Fox News debates, she asked some tough questions. And so I don't know if you remember this, Crystal, but after that debate, he really flipped out and basically refused to do any more Republican debates unless Megyn Kelly was not moderating them.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah,
and then
well,
he
the
literally
whole blood coming out of her eyes and ears and
blood coming out of her wherever. Yeah. And he literally ended up skipping a debate because Megyn was there. Now, what I found crazy at the time is that I'm looking at that like this is the most petty, insecure, weak thing I've ever seen from a candidate.
Yeah.
But all of Trump's people were like, look how macho he's being. He literally doesn't want tough questions from Megyn Kelly. I found it so sad that they managed to flip what was the reality. Like, this is insecure and petty, and they thought, like, this is masculine. That's crazy. That was crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, they've been on bad terms for a long, long time. But apparently recently there was some event where they were at, I don't know if it was like some Turning Points USA event or some conservative conference, and Megyn Kelly talked about this recently, like, oh, yeah, we made up, we talked or whatever. And I was like, oh, boy. So Trump decided to go on Megyn Kelly's show. Now, we talked about this a little beforehand off air, where, Megyn Kelly has a brand of like, I'm like right wing, but more like center right, a little more reasonable than some of the other psychos. And I'm a tough interviewer.
Yeah.
Right. And my thought was like, well, she and Trump recently made up. I don't think she's going to go that tough on him because I know how smart she is and what she's capable of. And there's no way she's actually going to hit her potential for what this interview could be. Right. And you were like, no, she'll go tough on him, but it'll be on very specific issues where she can kind of get away with it.
Yes.
And that is exactly what happened. She took like the least controversial issues online, like the biggest wave-ridey issues online, and she grilled him on those. Now, the full interview isn't out yet, so I'll be curious to see if she grills him on other things that wouldn't necessarily be popular with her audience, right? But this is the thing that we have right now. This is the teaser clip that they released. I'm going to show you guys a little piece of it, and then we'll react to it.
This is the #1 question they wanted me to ask you. That you shut the country down for 6 weeks in spring of 2020. Operation Warp Speed.
Excuse me.
Rushed through.
I didn't really.
Let me ask the question.
Megyn,
this is my audience's question. I got to get it out.
But I let the governors shut down. Some did and some didn't.
Okay.
Some didn't shut down at all.
Operation Warp Speed, though.
Yeah.
That was on the vaccines. They were rushed through. They have helped but also hurt a lot of people. And your White House actually supported mask mandates. So wouldn't you like a do-over on any of that?
Look, when this came in, nobody knew what the hell it was. It sounded like an ancient, pandemic. You thought that was from 200 years ago or from 1917. We never thought you'd have a pandemic. Nobody had any idea. We got word that bad things were happening in China, right around the Wuhan clinic. And I was the one that said it was in the Wuhan clinic. And, I stuck with it, and it was absolutely. It came out of the Wuhan clinic. But you take a look, and what we did was, this was brand new. Nobody knew what the hell it was. There's dust. Somebody said there's dust coming in from China, and it's killing people in Italy, and it's killing people in France, and it's going to kill people here. And by the way, I shut it down to China. That was a big move. I saved thousands, hundreds of thousands of lives by doing it. But honestly, I don't blame a lot of people because nobody knew what it was. Now we do understand it somewhat. Nobody really understands it even now fully. But nobody knew what COVID was, and it wasn't even a name. I called it the China virus. I still do. I call it the China virus. It came out of China. They call it COVID and COVID-19. As far as the vaccine's concerned, you had the original COVID, and the vaccine had an impact on that. And there are some people, I will tell you, some friends of mine that are Democrat, I think they voted for me, but they're Democrat, very smart people, top people. They say, I don't understand one thing. Why don't you talk more about the vaccine? It was one of the greatest things you've ever done. Now think of that. They say to me, and I say, I'm not going to talk about it one way or the other. First of all, no mandates. I don't want mandates. I never had mandates. Florida sort of had a mandate because they were giving the vaccine. They were demanding everybody take the vaccine. It's another thing. But no mandates, no anything. I didn't demand anybody take it. But I have people on the other side, not my side, although probably there's some on my side too. They said, you saved 100 million people because I got it done in 9 months as opposed to 5 years to 12 years. A lot of people.
You're proud of it.
No, I'm not proud of it. I'm saying what Democrats think. Democrats.
I get it. I mean, and I'm not somebody who denies some of the good that the vaccines did. I lived through that too. But of course, a lot of people have been vaccine injured. And that's one of the questions. Those people are mad that they were rushed through and that they can't sue.
Well, I never gave mandates, and people have to make up their own, make their own decision. As far as I'm concerned, now some places had mandates, very strong mandates, largely Democrat governors, and probably some Republicans, et cetera, et cetera. But there are Democrats that say, "Why aren't you talking about that?" It's one of the they really believe strongly. One said, "You say," and this is very smart people. They said, "You saved 100 million people worldwide."
All right, so Megyn Kelly also goes on at a different part in the clip to bring up Dr. Fauci, of course, and was like, you didn't fire Fauci, and like, wasn't that a mistake? And Trump's reaction is basically the same, where he's like, look, first of all, I ignored his advice a whole bunch. I didn't listen to his advice every single time. And second of all, he was previously a well-respected person, and so that's why we kept him in the administration. And also, look, we literally didn't know what was going on in the early times of the virus, and so everybody was kind of guessing as they went along. It was educated guesses, and you had to like adjust on the fly. That was basically his reaction to it.
Yeah.
So I have to say, in this clip, I'm way more with Trump than I am with Megyn Kelly. Even when Megyn Kelly, she made a point that I found so weaselly, where it was a total false equivalence about the vaccine. Like, sure, it helped, but it also hurt.
Right.
As if those things are freaking even at all.
Right.
Trump is not right that he saved 100 million lives, but he's right that there were tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions who were saved by the vaccine getting done and getting done quickly. And the thing that I despise about this so much, Crystal, you have no idea, is that Megyn Kelly is being such a goddamn wave rider here because she knows what's popular online is the vaccine skepticism. Well, guess what? I got news for you. That's the only freaking place it's popular, because if you look at the polling data among normie Americans, everybody's like, well, obviously the vaccine was a good thing.
Yeah.
It's only the people online who are absolutely insane about this issue because they have terminal brain worms from listening to a bunch of idiots lie 24/7 about it. And so she's decided, oh yeah, I'll go tough on Trump, but I'll go tough on Trump in a way where I'm riding the wave, and I'm the truth teller who's telling the truth that nobody will about this issue. And sir, those vaccines were really bad, and wasn't Fauci really bad? It's such a virtue signal for Megyn Kelly. There's like the things that she could have gone after him for. The list is endless. You could have brought up, and maybe she does in the rest of the interview, to be fair, right? I'm sure she doesn't go as hard as she goes on this one, but like the 91 criminal charges, the 4 indictments, the fact that the election wasn't stolen, and Megyn Kelly is definitely smart enough to know the election wasn't stolen. The cutting taxes for the rich, the destruction of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the increase of drone strikes over 400%, the killing of Soleimani, a top Iranian commander who was on the field fighting ISIS, the attempt to coup Venezuela, the ripping up the Iran agreement, the pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord, the outsourcing of 200,000 jobs when he ran as I'm the anti-outsourcing guy. Like the number of things you could have... War with Mexico! He's out there saying we should have war with Mexico. You could, like, that's not something you brought up over this wave-ridey, stupid-ass issue?
It's interesting to me because honestly, they're both playing to their audience. And what I mean by that is, yeah, Megyn's audience, this is a big issue for them. They're super focused on it. We did our focus group for Breaking Points this week. And the biggest criticism that the focus group participants had of Trump was on COVID and lockdowns, and this, like, one of the best things he actually did during his presidency, which was ushering through Operation Warp Speed and getting the vaccines ready as quickly as they did. That was like their critique of him. Although interestingly, even though DeSantis like sort of tested out leaning into that as like a contrast with Trump, none of the people who had that critique of Trump were actually DeSantis people. Right. So like it hadn't computed for them in terms of like, therefore I should vote for Ron DeSantis. But that's an aside. Trump is showing his normie instinct here.
Absolutely.
This is, similar to how he's always been very clear cut on Social Security and Medicare, no cuts to entitlements, right? I mean, it's that sort of like, and same thing on abortion, taking a more moderate approach, at least rhetorically, even though he was the person who, put the Supreme Court justices in place to overturn Roe versus Wade. Now he's very much like, let's leave it to the states, and I don't really want to talk about this, and privately recognize that this was a horrendous disaster for Republicans. This to me is him showing his normie instinct of where the broad general public is. And he is so far ahead in the Republican primary that he doesn't feel a need to have to placate them on every single little thing, because even the people who critiqued him in our focus group, which isn't scientific, whatever, but even the people who critiqued him on this, they were still voting for him. So.
I know, yeah. And by the way, he is so slippery. He is so slippery. There's a point in the interview where he flips it so quickly back on DeSantis where it'll make your head spin how quickly he flipped it back on DeSantis. He was like, he was like, DeSanctimonious, he shut down Florida. He shut down Florida. Everybody saw he shut down Florida. You know who didn't shut down their state? The governor of South Carolina didn't shut down their state. The governor of Tennessee didn't shut down their state. The governor of South Dakota didn't shut down their state. I never shut down anything. I left it all to the states and let the states decide on their own. I never shut down anything. But DeSanctimonious, he shut down Florida. And I was like, God damn. He flipped it and went on the offense like that.
Yeah.
It was so quick. And I was like, and then I actually really like the line of, because any other Republican would be scared of their own shadow to admit, like, actually, Democrats are with me on this issue. They would think that's like like the Scarlet Letter or something. Like, oh, Democrats are so bad. Trump's like, actually, there's a lot of Democrats out there, very smart people, very brilliant people. And they told me, sir, you should be bragging about this. You saved 100 million lives, sir. And it just has that impact where, if you're sitting in Megyn Kelly's seat, you're like, oh, this isn't going how I thought it would go.
Yeah, well, I mean, he can get away with, like, if a different Republican candidate said the same things, they wouldn't be able to get away with it. But because he's Donald Trump, like, he can get away with even, not going along with where the base is on this issue and still have them vote for him. The other thing that I was thinking about as he was talking and he was recalling, like, you don't remember what it was like at the beginning. I was thinking back to before we, it really hit here and before we had lockdowns and the whole thing really, like, sort of took hold in America, the person who was covering it the most was Tucker Carlson. And remember, there was a divide between Tucker at that point because it was like, oh, China, and it was this sort of like xenophobic
Yeah, take
play.
It seriously. Take the virus seriously.
It was constant coverage. Take it seriously. This is a big deal. This is going to be coming here, et cetera. And Sean Hannity, also on Fox News at that point, was taking the total different track. And so at the beginning, remember, there was research that was done that actually found that Tucker Carlson's audience was getting sick at a lower rate than Sean Hannity's audience because they were taking it more seriously. So there was an alternate timeline where it actually was like the right-wing Trumpian thing to do, to be obsessed with coronavirus. And so and actually take it really seriously and actually deal with it. And so that's kind of what he's gesturing at there, is at the very beginning, there could have been a totally different political valence on all of these, like, pandemic era protocols and how this all went, that just, it happened to flip in the other direction. But he's completely right that, and obviously it's stupid that any of this gets filtered through a partisan lens. It's like the worst part of our politics. But he is right that at the very beginning, there was a moment of chaos where everybody was trying to figure out, based on their partisan affiliation, where they were supposed to be on this issue.
I think Trump is also hiding his power level on how much he loves the vaccines. I think if he was being honest with everybody, he would say, I saved 100 million people. This was one of the best things I ever did. Yeah. I would love to see, this is why I really want, there's a million reasons I want him at the Republican debates, but if he was at the Republican debates and people tried to attack him on this, I think the clips would be legendary of him manhandling these idiots trying to wave ride the online idiocy. And he would just be like, no, the vaccines were good. Shut up.
But you know what he could do is he could be like, you're vaxxed, Ron.
Yeah,
there's
so many angles they leave him, and he's going to exploit every little weakness because that's what he does.
They're all, actually, that Jessica Tarlov on Fox News, she did this to Janine Pirro the other day, and it worked like a charm. She was like, what are you talking about, safety, Janine? You're vaxxed, and you're perfectly fine. And she had nothing to say about it. Nothing to respond with that, because it was fucking true. And so Trump could do that to Ron DeSantis or whoever wanted to try to act like, oh, the vaccines were so bad. Like, oh, well, tell me how many boosters you got. How many,
Could we just reflect on how insane it is? I am literally one of the most anti-Trump commentators in the world. And Megyn Kelly fumbled this so hard because she's trying to wave ride that I'm here defending Trump. It is unconscionable that I'm saying words in defense of Donald Trump, but that's how stupid the terminal online brainworms are. And that's how stupid audience capture is.
Yeah.
That this is where you put me, Megyn Kelly. And by the way, Megyn Kelly knows there's no fucking false equivalence. Oh, the vaccine did some good and it did some bad. No, bitch. It did overwhelmingly good. And you know that.
Yes, that is. And she tries to push it off like, this is my audience's question, But if you're the interviewer, you are the one making the choice of what you're going to ask, how you're going to ask it, how you're going to frame it, et cetera. And I think she is, when she wants to be, a phenomenally talented, aggressive. She's got that. She came from a legal background, like that prosecutorial approach. But, she's not the only one that sees the writing on the wall with regard to Trump. And she probably doesn't want to be an outcast again for this, whole administration going forward.
They have no shame. It's pathetic.